So the gross level problem statement is, why do some people believe in building their technology, right? So for example, versus some people are like, I'll never build a technology, right? So some people are saying, I will always use the standard solutions, like I'll always use like the Java or whatever the industry standard solution is, right? And versus there are some people who are like always inventing, reinventing, or whatever you call it, new stuff, right? So for example, they'll always be playing with this new technology whenever that comes up, new language. They'll try to build their own generic solution, right? So at some level, this is the problem statement. You can look at people, professionals in the industry, in the software industry, and divide them into people who believe all the problems have been solved, kind of, and they just have to just use those standard technologies, right? There is a standard base, and you have to operate in that standard base. Don't deviate from the standard base. Use the proven languages, proven technologies, right? And just whatever business problem you have, just translate it into a solution, right? And then the solution must involve all the pieces that you're using in the solution must involve the standard proven technology. Okay? At some level, you would argue that this is absolutely fine. Virtually every single doctor in the world, every single lawyer, every single aviation industry guy, every single mechanical engineer probably is doing exactly that. Everybody is using a standard solution. Nobody is coming up saying, "मैं खुद का नया screwdriver बना दूंगा और my whole car would be using that screwdriver." Right? Really, what the fuck? There are already so many screwdrivers. Just pick one of the standard screwdrivers and use that for manufacturing your car. Right? So you can argue that this is the standard of the world, not just some people. Right? This is what is taught in engineering colleges. Right? They actually expect you that by the time you pass out, you are familiar with all the standard technologies. You are familiar about how to solve any problem using those standard technologies, more or less. Right? That's the mindset at some level. Right? So I am saying, and on the other hand, right? On the other hand, there are these people who are like, I'll build my own tool. These are like radical people or whatever you call them, right? So I totally, for example, come in that space. Like मैं खुद का use करूँगा, and I'm always looking for. So these people are always, they have these common traits, right? The common traits are, they always have their own philosophies and theories about how anything should be done. They're like contrarians at some level. They're like, industry is thinking like 99% people are thinking like that, but I believe this. So they all have this particular aspect, right? They are honge majority, they can be wrong. Majority can be wrong, right? I don't care. Just because majority believes X doesn't mean X, right? I'm saying I want to use something else. I'm saying they arrived at the majority decision at some point. Majority arrived at the majority decision at some point. What you're looking today is the distillation of thought process which was there 5 years ago, right? It's not like a majority consensus arrives at like that, right? So it's always lagging behind. So this is the problem statement. These are the two factions, arguably. So I don't believe who is right and wrong, right? So like a lot of people actually think there's a right, or like in this case. So actually I have given a lot of thought to this particular problem. I'll tell you in a different context. Okay. So I keep on talking to you about a book that I want to write related to management philosophy or whatever, right? My management philosophy, right? So my management philosophy, the name of the book is, I've joked about, actually I'm pretty serious, I love that name actually. Machines are people too, right? So I just want to see that book in a bookstore, Machines are people too, and we'll probably have a robot as what you were trying to feel very sad about being fired by even saying you did a bad job or something. I don't know. So let's talk about machines, right? So machines are excellent, right? If you look about, let's say, I'm talking not just machine as a machine, like individual machine, but I'm talking about, let's say, consider the car manufacturing industry, the pipeline, right? So car manufacturing industry, the pipeline is a machine. From the sales guy, when you walk into a sales center, is part of the machine. He knows exactly what is the job. Wherever you go in the world, if you enter a car sales showroom, you know exactly what. In fact, even look at the ads. Every car ad is exactly the same. It's part of the machine. It has been mechanized at some level. It's like It's like no difference, fundamental difference between the mechanical components which are fit, and this machine is known for performing repetitive tasks, right? Sewing machine to whatever machine, if you look at steam engine, they're just doing the same thing, and and they do it extremely well, right? So if you look at the steam engine, it's like extremely energy efficient, right? It can take out like even points. I'm pretty sure today steam engine could not be improved in efficiency by even 0.1%. Right, so I'm saying they are all efficiency things. They want like they have done it, and they are doing millions of times. Like every machine that is creating machine phones, let's say, or anything happening in the industry in the world right now is probably operating at millions and millions of per second rates. Right, so machines are, to me, I'm using word machine in a broader context, not just that individual. The mechanical machine that you think of when you think of machine like a car engine or whatever. I'm talking about the whole industry is a machine, right? So somehow at a constant rate, the way machine is churning out, stamping out holes, at high level, the car and automotive manufacturing industry is churning out cars. Like the way you're stamping one hole in a metal sheet, that is a machine, but you can look at the whole car getting out of, it's a lot bigger conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt doesn't only necessarily include machine. There are humans there, like virtually no manufacturing actually happens, which is completely 100% automated, right? There are always these pieces that machines will break, or if not break, even they can't do something. So humans and machine actually very in a very way they cohesively they operate in such a fashion that it works as a whole, right? And it works in a very mechanical fashion. And if human, the machine, the most important thing
if this happens, do this. If this happens,
exactly. It has been mechanized, right?
Yes.
You can operate in a very mechanized fashion. This, what I mean by mechanized is that there is no scope of thinking, no thought. Don't apply any thought, no judgment. I'm not expecting that guy, so I'm expecting that guy to become trained. So you must have seen that cutting guy who is just cutting chop. He's not thinking or creating a new way of cutting. He has just been cutting in that fashion. Similarly, in whoever is in this process, so that's the machine side to me, right? So at a larger level, not just machine, but humans who are operating with that machine, but also the larger level where the CEO of the car industry is also operating in exactly the same way. I'm saying at some level, the CEO of the car industry is also part of the machine. Every day is looking at the number of kitni car bani aaj. You're looking at car sales demand patterns. You're looking at how many machines broke down in this firmware, how many people have resigned. Like I'm saying, you look at all of these things because these are happening again and again. None of them is new. Okay, my some important engineer person has resigned. It's not a new thing, right? This person knows this person has a playbook. And this person is expected, a good CEO of this thing is the one who probably, in this case where everything is very well known, is one who is actually just playing by the playbook, right? So consider MACD. So MACD is the most important example for me, right? So crucial example, like the book that I told you about, I might have told you about the E-Myth, the E-Myth revisited or whatever, right? The entrepreneurship. So this to me also like this philosophy is kind of the predominant philosophy, I believe, of the first 3 quarters of the last century, right? So management philosophy, that machines, right, mechanizing the thing. You start with people loved the cars when automobile came, and suddenly realized, shit, there are these machines, and they can be so much better than the horses or whatever. And then you started applying that mechanization at a bigger and bigger scale. Right, today probably even the election is happening in a mechanized fashion, right? Look at the TV show, news cycle is a very mechanized thing. There's a formula that everybody is applying. There's nobody just, So the E-Myth, for example, book actually just breaks down this entire machine and tells you that how the E-Myth book actually applies this whole machine psychology and machine way of looking at things where there are no machines at all. Where this guy is running, let's say, a bakery shop, where you pretend virtually what machine is involved in bakery. You're just cooking food, right? Baking cupcakes. And where is the machine there? Virtually no machine is there. But there is, like every single thing is mechanical. You have to open the shop at 3 o'clock in the morning. You have to go and fetch something because baking takes like 5 hours for it to get the maximum best result. So if you want to consistently produce cupcakes, right, which are quality because people who are looking at going to office, they are leaving offices at houses at 7 o'clock, let's say, and at 7 o'clock they're expecting the first time they go, they want to get a coffee. And so I'm saying this is a machine. Like, this is not like every individual is deciding whether they want to get out at 7. Like, our society is living as a machine. We all have a button, 7 o'clock, everybody leaves the house. Look at the traffic jam. Suddenly you have a massive traffic jam at 7 and 9, and suddenly everything is empty and so on, right? So we are all living like a machine at some level.
But say any rule or any law.
So we'll look at what are the essential elements of machine. So we'll look at that. So I'm thinking, but what I'm saying is the realization is that the last century has been about the realization that we have to all become machines, right? And that is what this book is prescribing, where there is a process in which you argue that there is no machine at all. It's actually completely mechanical. You're designing that process as if you were designing a actual assembly line or whatever, right? The cupcake is actually an assembly line, just that the entire process is performed by human beings. There's no machine at all. There is no robotic arm which is moving. But every single time you have to create this cupcake, you have to process that, follow that recipe, whatever that thing is, right? You have to allow it to wait for 2 hours or whatever it is, right? And every week you have to go and replenish the supply. Or you can break down your entire cupcake manufacturing or whatever the shop. This is mom's and pop's shop. This is like just a single person who is running that cupcake. Like, it's not like I'm talking about a manufacturing industry. I'm talking about this book was talking about just a mom's pop shop about making cupcakes. And then this guy was saying you have to figure this out, right? So what is a mechanical element? What is the flow chart? What is the algorithm that you're following, right? And the book goes in great detail about fixing your philosophy so that it doesn't feel odd, right? What I'm saying is a little bit mechanical or whatever, like cold, saying what the fuck, I'm a human being, and I'll come to that. This person has one answer to why you should do this process. It's given to me that mechanical process is awesome, right? It has led to all the industrial revolution that we talk about. All the good that we have, the fact that I'm sitting at the sofa is output of the machine. The fact that I could get this house on a rent is because there's a machine. Like, there are brokers are part of the machine. The moment I press this button, I'm looking for a house for rent, suddenly a machine in the society will start functioning, and then I'll be brought into the new room and buy a house.
I have a cross question on this. Okay, let's leave the idea of machine. Okay. Then any process या anything, if I'm building anything, right? So वो कुछ तो उसमें machinery aspect होगा ही, right? Like
Exactly. I'm not just saying कुछ तो होगा. I'm saying this is what this book deals with. So I'm saying I want to contrast this machine thought with some other thought. There is a thought that is coming, right? So So I'm saying every process must be mechanized. Like, this is like the thesis of the book. My book will go like this. This is the first chapter to establish that everything is a machine. Okay? And if anything can be converted to machine, it must be converted to machine. If you can create a flow chart for how to make a good paratha, you must, is what I'm trying to say, right? Then you will constantly be able to make it better. The whole point is that unless there is a process that is consistently being followed, right? Mechanical, without applying your brain. Think about 50,000 MACD branches. If you want to make the quality of FD or anything about MACD different, the only way you can do it is by knowing, because there are at least 50,000 human beings. In fact, not just 50, every MACD probably has 10. It's probably 5 lakh human beings every single day taking decisions, living their life, right, inside that MACD store and doing things. If they are all using their brains, right, like I'm saying, the way to run MACD and the way to run, let's say, an Indian army are exactly the same, right? Exactly, you can question what is the point of the march, right? The first thing you taught when you joined march, like we did not join military, any training, and yet in the school we were taught marching, right? Because we were inculcated into that thought, right? If we have to become, and marching is the most simple, basicest reminder to you that you are not going to, even something as simple as at what rate should your hand come up, right? When you're marching, is exactly at what angle should your face be looking at, is controlled by the machine, right? That's a machine, and we humans have this resistance to that machine for a wrong reason, right? They believe that this is curtailing their freedom and all that independence and blah blah. But to me, like the thesis of my book is that this is not at all the case, right? That I'll come to in a bit, right? So if you can ever become mechanize something, like that's why I like the thing that I keep on telling the rules, right? I have this high level thinking. The person who has more rules has more whatever. Every time I make this coffee, like you saw, I do that. Like I pour water in the cup, and I put the cup into the bhagona or whatever, right? And then I knew I had to make 2 cups of coffee, and I never had to use my judgment, right? Because that's where people think they have to use judgment. Like that's bad, right? So I actually poured twice, right? Everybody puts water like with their judgment in the vessel, right? More or less. So I put it there. I know exactly when to stop. For example, I see.
Funny part was
Yeah, what do you call it? I don't know.
vessel
Vessel is too generic, right? I know Bhagwana is like a particular vessel. So we have this resistance to mechanization, and I have this rule that the more rules you can have, the better human being you are, right? For every single thing, I also have this thought, right? I must have told you about this compile time thinking versus runtime thinking, right? It's exactly the same thing. For me, everything thought at the time when the decision is to be taken or when the action is to be taken, if at that time you're thinking, then you're doing runtime thinking, right? Compile time thinking is that you've done all the thinking beforehand.
No doubt you like Rust.
Of course. All compiled languages, blah, blah, right? So yeah, for 15 years, I told everybody just give up on that programming languages which I ask you to compile. Just use pattern. It's awesome. But in 5 years or less, I completely in search of it. 180-degree turn I've taken that people are surprised, Rane, etc. What the fuck, is this the same guy? So coming back to the original point, the first 3 quarters were characterized by this book, right? So if you look at all the MACD, so let's look at the revolution, 19th century. 19th century had 20th century. Sorry. So 20th century had the World War. So what is a World War? What do we know about World War, right? We do know a number of things. Lots of people, lots of died and stuff. But the most interesting and important thing is I think at some point they ran out of metal, right? So people in America, for example, were donating their utensils in the war effort, right? Because they ran out of metal. Why? Because for bullets, for guns and bullets, right? So they manufactured so many guns and bullets that they ran out of bullets, and they had to use all their metal in their houses. They started tearing down buildings, old buildings, and to get more metal, right? So what I'm saying is at the war footing, they were able to transform the entire country and Europe, and it's not just US, right? Europe and US, and even probably other parts of the world we don't know about during World War. Everybody just talks about Europe and US. I don't know, because Indians probably died more in World War than anybody else. I don't know what all happened in India in the preparation of World War, right? They just didn't die. They must have obviously been trained. They must have lots of things that must have happened. We don't have enough documentary evidence about those stuff because nobody talks about, everybody wants to talk about the European and American suffrage, right? They don't talk about Indians also suffered or other people suffered. They just don't want to say that, right? All the World War movies and games, etc., just highlight the European and Western suffering.
Yeah.
So, but bottom line is what is the most important thing about the century is that aspect, right? And that kind of to me in some way came from the car, right? Who was that? Henry Ford, right?
Ford.
So assembly line revolutionized the production of the car, industrialization, and they realized they can certainly do more, and that's exactly what saved them, right? As America won the war, right? Even for most part, we know that Americans did not participate in the war, only in the last few months or something that I don't know exactly what only in the end they entered, right? When the Pearl Harbor happened. Till before that point, Americans were neutral parties. And they were supplying actually guns and bullets to both sides. They actually profited a lot by supplying arms to they had that neutral kind of thing. Obviously, they started becoming worse and worse with time. So I think IBM was an American company.
But I'm not sure. IBM.
Was it a German company?
I'm not sure, but they played a role with Nazi or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. So IBM was an American company,
Yeah.
right? And IBM provided technology to Germans, which was used to identify Jews and all of that, right? For tagging people
Yes,
and
tagging people.
creating a numeric system to classify who was more serious and who was less serious and threat, whatever, right? Who should be given what kind of punishment. So bottom line is that America was able to, in a very short period of time, mobilize into industry. The whole America became an industry, is what I'm trying to say, right? And they said they converted the whole country to an industry which was producing arms and guns and machine war equipment and so on. And till today, that war industry is the biggest industry, the biggest influencer of US foreign policy and so on. Similarly, if you look at what else happened in last century, right? So other than the war and this, ignore the Cold War and stuff. Cold War definitely was just the offshoot of the same war. The war industry that was created during this thing. The new interesting things to me are MACD. If you look at the last century, the next industry interesting is the MACD. That the way MACD conquered the world, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually companies like Intel, etc. started. Actually, after a bit, actually story changed. So to me, that's the first 3 quarters, right? The car, the World War, and the MACD, and there are lots of MACDs, right? So MACD, Starbucks, like Subway, all of them are just MACD to me, right? So at some level, these 3 things happened, and all these 3 things are about exactly the same thing. That you must become an army person. You must just stop using MACDs, run exactly the same way, the way manufacturing is run, the way army is run, the way all of them are running exactly the same way. You're trained, right? You have this software that humans implement, right? At some level, humans are the machine on which this code is running, right? MACD is a code, software code, and it is running not on computers, or it's not controlling the CNC, the automated assembly robot hand. It's controlling a human being, right? So that's the first part.